How did you find your way into the financial industry?
I went back and got my MBA, from I think a pretty quality school, Wharton, uh, at, at at 36 years old. So the average age of my peers were 10 years younger, with 26. So I graduated at 39 years old and started my career at Wall Street, close to 40. And I think you know the business well enough to know that the newbies, whether this proves whether you're young or a little bit old, the newbies have more of the menial tasks. So as I say, I was getting coffee for people for 27 years old when I was 40, but I think I'm also a West Point grad. I think the discipline and knowing seniority doesn't have, to me, doesn't have anything to do with necessarily with age. Age as well, if it connects with experience, that's one thing. But I think at least I had the maturity to know these people that I was working for, even though they were 30, they were they were important from a revenue generation. They knew much more than I did about the business. So I was happy to the big banks recruit from all the better known business schools. I got recruited. I was in the MBA class at Lehman Brothers. They asked me like, it has to be in financials to be under sort of still underneath our umbrella. But what companies do you want to pick up? I knew this is 1999, 1998. I said, I want to pick up the electronic brokers. This is the days of Ameritrade and E-Trade and Schwab. They gave me a good foundation, learned from guys that, did the analyst job really well. And I think it helped that I had such I would say, a passion for the companies that I cover. I think that helped throughout, the 25 years or so since then as well. But the thing to me that was amazing that you see this today is that I was constantly being told by people that, well, sooner or later, Merrill Lynch is going to get into e-brokers business. They got more technology skills, more people, more capital. They're going to clean their clocks when and if they want to get serious. And you hear sort of the same things today about the newer the fintechs when JP Morgan wants to get into to me, the answer was these companies that focused on electronics, they woke up every day and survived. That like they lived, breathed on electronic, like that was their main gig. They didn't survive unless they focused on electronic trade. And they were able, and this is what I still believe, E-Trade was able to stay ahead of Morgan Stanley, who eventually bought them, in the Bank of America Merrill Lynch's, because they just stayed focused, and it was their survival. It was their bread and butter. If they didn't, they wouldn't be around. So they were able to innovate and stay one step ahead of the more traditional players who had much bigger franchises and businesses in different areas that were pulling on their not only focus and resources and capital as well.
Do you have any favorite characters that ran any of these companies?
Oh, absolutely. My two favorites I think would be Terry Duffy and Jeff Sprecher. Jeff, to me, is the most innovative guy, the most forward thinker, who sees the puck, where the puck's going. Back before the financial crisis, he said to me, us exchange CEOs, we just had it, it's just been a piece of cake. This electronics, we just sit back and watch volumes grow. He goes, but sooner or later, the electronics are going to mature. And he goes, I think, where exchanges can add real value is not only risk management, but in clearing. And he goes out and he buys these the Chicago Clearing Corp. He bought NIBOT, and it was the unsexy side of the business. But this is in, I think, around '06, '07. And then I joke with him and I say, it took a financial crisis, but dang, you were right on. I mean, clearing came to be, with Dodd-Frank. I go, you had it right. The exchange business I get the markets are great, but it was the back end, this risk management clearing that really made them valuable. I go, it was just, I'd never seen anybody sort of predict something like that years in advance and watch it play out. Terry, to me, he's just in a separate class as far as being a class act. Super highly respectful, had great relationships with investors. He's a guy that's gone from, being the hog pit trader to, literally being sort of the representative of of the futures industry, if not, trading industry overall.
Were there any companies that you were critical of through the years that you got right?
I was very critical, believe it or not, at TD Ameritrade. They had bought Knight, and they still held a lot of Knight stock, and they used that as collateral. But the Knight stock, when it fell, let's just say they owned a big portion, maybe not control it, because it was still publicly traded. And I'm going like, how can you're risking the farm on what happens tonight, because this is your backstop of collateral. And the CFO hated me. I still remember the guy named Randy McDonald, and they would. I literally had Joe Ricketts call and ask me, why I was had so much ill will towards the company. Lo and behold, Joe Moglia takes over, and he calls me, and he was at Merrill Lynch prior to taking over as CEO, and going up to Omaha, Nebraska, where TD Ameritrade is headquartered. He calls me before he moves up, actually makes the physical move out there. He goes, I want to sit down with you. He goes, I'm still learning the business. I want to hear why you've been critical. He goes, I'm not calling. He goes, I'm going there with an open mind. He goes, I'm not here to combat you. He goes, I just want to hear what you think of the company. And I laid it all out. He goes, thank you. I hear you. And he goes, the one thing I will tell you is that they will treat you with respect. And he goes, I would ask the same of you, them, because it got a little contentious, when you get real critical of them. And I go, I'm 100% with you, Joe. And they did. And hopefully I held up my end of the bargain. And I got him on tape saying that, that they were going to go out of business. Once they really looked at it, that their capital was so low. And I can send you the tape if you want it, where he says this. I don't know how he put it, but that the things that I was seeing or that the industry was seeing, were right, and they needed a turnaround, and they had to restructure the capital, and they did, and they made it through, and then they prospered.
Are there any companies you thought about quitting your job to invest in?
Certainly more recently, the CBOE, Ed would say, you got it, Rich, because I was jumping up and down on these zero DTE products. It just something hit me that this was not a fad. This is why I thought, because when you saw two things made my career, electronic trading, the other is just a focus on volumes. Like we put out this volume sheet and we really prided ourselves in, that this industry, you knew how many widgets were made every day. So if you don't pay attention, it's your own fault. We had seen all these other volumes like equities and like equity options go from, it used to be 7 billion shares a day, go up to 11 and 12. And they backed off a bit, but they're still at 10 billion shares a day. And then when you look at options, they doubled, more than doubled. They went from 17 and a half pre-COVID up to 35 to 40 and over. And then they've sustained themselves. So everybody is saying, this is a temporary thing, these zero DTE, products, they'll pull back. This is, this can't be sustainable. Like there's something that's going on with automation. We haven't seen equities go back to 7 billion. We haven't seen equity options go back to 17 and a half. This has gotten the fancy of, professional semi-pro traders that interact with brokers, and it's bringing the institutions with it. So anyway, like that's, and stock was like at 115, now it's at 165. I would say the other one would be the CME too, just because I watched that go from 60 to 650.
Did you believe the NYSE would survive?
Like I didn't think they were going to survive. Like they tried a number of things. Remember NYPC? Like I think Duncan judged, the success of the NYC is whether they were able to expand beyond equities, and they really and they got the equity options, but they were never able to get into the futures business in the hardy derivative marketplace. And I think that's ultimately, and he says this, Duncan would acknowledge to, we didn't get it. We didn't get to where we wanted. He goes, and this is the best thing, the fairest thing for shareholders.
What made you decide you wanted to retire?
To tell you the truth, I felt like I accomplished all that I wanted to. And, I had a great run. There's always a bunch of young competitors coming, and I thought I was going out. I'm not going to say at the top, but at least I didn't want to become marginal. So I think it all came together. And I would tell you right now, I'm pretty dang happy. Like I still today, I listen to all the calls, including this morning's CBOE. I don't, but the good part of it, I guess, to do what I enjoy, just understand and like I'm not having to work and write like unfortunately you have to. I don't have to write anything. I don't have to get in the queue and ask a question and push out my name. I don't have to, get my model super straight. All that stuff, I just get to enjoy and seeing the growth and picking on the areas of these companies that I like that fast, that's been my passion. There's still electronics is dominating, and I get to enjoy the fun parts of the business. I'm trying to improve my golf game. That's one, which is a hard job. As Terry Duffy says, there's no guarantees he can get worse too. But I am going to be on some boards, or a board, at least one anyway. I'm trying for a couple others. The charity work, both from a board perspective, and there's actually this charity that we're talking about, Tuesday's Children, and nothing could be as compelling as what they do for the military families and wounded charities like Wounded Warriors for people that have sacrificed.
What does winning this award from Tuesday's Children mean to you?
To be honest, nothing could cap off my career as something like this. I got to ring the New York Stock Exchange bell at the closing bell, which is an over the top thing. That and this sort of recognition. But what makes this recognition different is that it ties the military side of it. Yeah, and again, there's no way I'm deserving of any military honors again compared. And I shirk when I see my 4-star buddy at an Army football game in Baton Rouge. But it does bring that. It's that part of my background that allows me to, at least I did serve my country. I did fly helicopters, and I still have a passion. I will do something in charity, not only Tuesday Children, but others, because that is part of my background. And I'm able to tie the two together. To me, this cause of Tuesday's Children is just, it's aligned with the military's principle of, you leave no soldier behind. Tuesday's Children, their mission is, and I'm paraphrasing it, to leave no family or child behind. And and nothing could be more important right now, at least in my, whether it's the 9/11, but they also have gone beyond to victims of terrorism, of mass violence, things like in Maine, but things over in, the Middle East. I was pretty fortunate to be in this industry because they compensate you so well. So it's a way to pull the two together, for me, and sort of tie the things that are really meaningful to me.
What is your advice for someone just starting in the industry?
I had a passion for electronic trading, and I think like when I talked to my guy that took over, I said, as best you can, absorb yourself with a passion in the industry. And then that's going to lead to me, the second most important thing is to have you got to have the skills, the knowledge, the analytical skills, but it's really the relationships that can set you. I think that help me. I don't know whether they set me apart or not, but they certainly helped me. The relationship with Terry, with Jeff Sprecher, with Ken Griffin, with Joe Moglia and Vinny Viola. I mean, the investors always knew that, I could get to them, and you can't get there unless you do the fundamentals right. But it's to me, it's the passion for electronic trading, and then the relationships that come with it that have more of a passion for the industry that you follow.